In the news tonight, His Majesty the King discusses with the Canadian Governor-General scopes of bilateral cooperation and ways to capitalize on a free trade agreement signed between the two countries. Lebanon's former army chief Michel Aoun arrives at the presidential palace in Abda, seating himself on the president's chair, which has been empty for the past 29 months. And Iraqi troops advance on the city of Mosul after taking breakthrough Daesh terrorist defense lines in an eastern suburb of the city after 2 weeks of fighting. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty King Abdullah held talks with Canada's Governor-General David Johnston, who is on the third day of his visit to the kingdom as part of a regional tour. The meeting discussed bilateral ties as well as ongoing developments in the region and efforts to counter terrorism. His Majesty hailed the historic relations between the two countries, which he said will witness further advancements through Johnston's visit as it provides a first-hand look at challenges facing Jordan from repercussions of the situation in the region. King Abdullah voiced appreciation of Canada's support, particularly with respect to the Syrian refugee issue, adding that world countries should follow Canada's footsteps in welcoming and hosting refugees. The meeting also dealt with prospects of closer cooperation between Jordan and Canada, namely in the sectors of mining, energy, transport and tourism. Johnston said Canada looks forward to strengthening trade exchange through a signed free trade agreement between Jordan and Canada, which entered into force in 2012. He expressed interest in broadening scopes of cooperation to include Canadian support to Jordan in the areas of filmmaking, vocational training, as well as women's empowerment in the work market. The meeting was followed by expanded talks attended by senior officials from the two sides.
The relations between our two countries have been a very warm one and a very historic one, and I wanted to again thank you in front of your august company for the way that you looked after me in Canada not long ago. I'm looking forward to having a very fruitful discussion on the bilateral relationship, but just again to thank you very much for being here and again to making this a regional tour, because I think it's so important on understanding the challenges that we have here. On the challenges of obviously the refugees, we're very, very grateful for what Canada is doing to support us. I know that you have taken on that burden too in being able to accept many numbers into your country. And I just wish that many other countries in the world took their international responsibilities as well as your country did. But please, welcome here to Jordan, and I'm just delighted to have you here.
Well, thank you so much, Your Majesty. Thank you for the warm and special welcome. It's wonderful to reciprocate the visit that you paid to us about a year and a half ago. This is the first visit by Governor-General to Jordan, and there will be many more. People of Jordan, I think, are renowned for a number of things, but one is clearly the warmth of their welcome and the quality of their friendship, and we cherish that very, very much. So we're delighted to be here with this delegation, and we look forward to using this as an opportunity to build on a very good relationship and make it even stronger.
Presided by Prime Minister Hani Molki on the Jordanian side and Governor-General David Johnston on the Canadian side, a meeting of senior officials discussed scopes of bilateral cooperation in addition to regional unrest, namely the Syria crisis. Al-Molki described Johnston's visit as timely and crucial to Jordan as it urges the international community to sustain its assistance to the kingdom, especially communities hosting Syrian refugees. He said as the Syria crisis enters its 6th year, Jordan can no longer cope with the growing burdens of the crisis while also struggling to achieve a development. Molki invited the private sector in both countries to work together to benefit from the free trade agreement the two countries had signed. One project of key importance to Jordan, Molki said, is the Red Dead Convenience Project, which, as he noted, will solve the Dead Sea problems and boost regional peace, cooperation and prosperity, expressing hope that Canada would help support that project. Johnston, for his part, said officials accompanying him have focused in their talks with Jordanian officials on security issues as well as Canada's support to refugees, in addition to cooperation in commerce, education and audio-visual production. He said Canada is open to Jordanian proposals on how best to launch initiatives that serve Syrians in Jordan. At the end of talks, the two sides linked a cultural cooperation agreement under which Jordanian film producers would have access to funds and incentives offered to Canadian filmmakers, and Jordanian films would enjoy distribution rights in Canada. Lebanon is celebrating the election of former Army Commander Michel Aoun as president, ending a 29-month presidential vacuum. Fireworks echoed across Beirut as the tally of the votes cast by lawmakers showed Aoun the winner during a parliamentary session broadcast live on national TV stations. Aoun arrived at the presidential palace in Babda this afternoon, seating himself on the president's chair, which has been empty for more than 2 years. Aoun, a Maronite Christian, secured the presidency by winning the support of 83 MPs, well above the absolute majority of 65 needed to win. Suleiman Franje, the only other official candidate, had asked his supporters to cast a blank ballot instead of voting for him. Aoun is due to meet lawmakers this week on their preferences for Prime Minister. He is obliged to designate the candidate with the greatest support among MPs, expected to be Saad al-Hariri. After taking oath, he made a statement saying, "We will respect the Arab League statute, namely its 8th clause, and pursue an independent foreign policy based on the higher interest of the Lebanese people and respect international law and safeguard Lebanon as an oasis of stability and understanding. As for the struggling with Israel, we will not spare any efforts for resistance in order to liberate what remains of Lebanese territory under occupation. There can be no solution in Syria that does not guarantee or begin with the return of the displaced. As for the Palestinians, we will continue our efforts to call for application of the right to return." His Majesty telegraphed Michel Aoun after he sworn in as President of Lebanon, congratulating him on the vote and expressing his good wishes for a successful term. His Majesty expressed assurances of Jordan's desire to strengthen cooperation and partnership with Lebanon in various fields to fulfill the aspirations of both peoples and enhance joint Arab action. King Abdullah said he is confident that Lebanon will be able, under the leadership of Aoun, to bolster its national unity and overcome its numerous challenges. Bahrain's Interior Minister, Lieutenant General Sheikh Rashid bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, on a visit to the kingdom, was received by His Majesty the King at Al Husseiniya Palace. The meeting dealt with bilateral relations as well as the situation in the Middle East. His Majesty and the Sheikh Rashid urged the need for pan-Arab action to deal with regional crises and reach political solutions that bring about peace and security. Present at the meeting was Interior Minister Salah Mohammed. An update on the prices of oil derivatives will take effect as of tomorrow in accordance with a ministerial decision under the monthly review. While the prices of cooking gas cylinder remained unchanged at 7 JD, the price of unleaded 90-octane gasoline went up to 600 fils per litre, compared with the September price of 575 fils. The price of unleaded 95-octane gasoline was set at 780 fils per litre, up from 745 fils, while diesel and kerosene were priced at 455 fils per litre, up from 435 fils. Israeli police shot and killed a Palestinian man whom they said opened fire at forces, injuring 3 soldiers at a crossing point close to the West Bank town of Ramallah. Earlier, Israeli soldiers arrested 11 Palestinians from different parts in the West Bank. The Palestinian Prisoners Club said in a statement that Israeli troops stormed the West Bank cities of Hebron, Nablus, Ramallah and Jenin and arrested the citizens. In the Gaza Strip, Israeli forces made an incursion into eastern Ghouza town near Khan Yunis. Palestinian sources said the Israeli forces, backed by military vehicles and bulldozers, advanced tens of meters into the town and combed the area in the coastal enclave. In Iraq and in the continued battle to take Mosul from Daesh, advancing Iraqi troops broke through terrorist defense lines in an eastern suburb of the city. Army sources said the troops moved forward on Gogjali, an industrial zone on the eastern outskirts, after 2 weeks of fighting. They then reached Karama district, their first advance into the city itself. Other military statements said 5 villages were taken north of Mosul, where Kurdish Peshmerga fighters are also deployed while army units advance in the north. UN officials said Daesh terrorists have been fighting off the offensive with suicide car bombs, snipers and mortar fire. They have also set oil wells on fire to cover their movements and displaced thousands of civilians from villages toward Mosul, using them as human shields. The Syrian army and its allies seized a strategic area in the besieged rebel-held eastern Ghouta area of Damascus. Rebels said the army stormed the town of Tel Kurdi, bringing them only a few kilometers from the city of Douma, known as Ghouta. Elsewhere in Aleppo, the army said the Nusra Front and other terrorist groups had killed 84 people in the city during the past 3 days. Syrian state media reported that terrorists had fired prison gas at the Hamadaniya district of government-held Western Aleppo. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said it had recorded 48 deaths since the rebel offensive began, including 17 children. Western and Middle Eastern states have expressed support for Libya's UN-brokered unity government and Prime Minister Fayez Siraj's push to restore order across the country and revive its oil-based economy. In London, officials from the United States, Britain, Italy, France, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia met Siraj for talks to tackle a standoff preventing the Government of National Accord from expanding its authority outside the capital. After the meeting, a spokesman or a spokeswoman for U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said the ministers, who included British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson and Italy's Paolo Gentiloni, reaffirmed the strong international support for the government. The ministers also called upon all Libyan economic institutions to work together in support of this effort. Western powers are concerned about resistance to Siraj and his government from the country's eastern military commander, General Khalifa Haftar, who has blocked a parliamentary vote to endorse the UN-backed authorities. Dozens of Turkish people and opposition leaders denounced the detention of a leading newspaper editor and a dozen senior staff over alleged support for a failed coup in July. The detention by Turkish police of the editor and senior staff came after 10,000 more civil servants were sacked yesterday over suspected links to the failed coup. The Istanbul's prosecutor office said the staff from the Cumhuriyet Daily, one of few media outlets still critical of President Tayyip Erdogan, were suspected of committing crimes on behalf of Kurdish militants and the network of cleric Fethullah Gulen. The newspaper said on its website that 12 of its staff were detained and some had their laptops seized from their homes. Over to Italy, and in the aftermath of a series of earthquakes, more than 15,000 people are now said to be staying in hotels and temporary accommodation in the central areas. No deaths or critical injuries have been reported after yesterday's 6.6 magnitude quake, but there was huge damage. Schools are closed in the capital Rome, whose mayor said checks are being carried out on buildings and the city's evacuation plan is being updated. The Italian Prime Minister pledged to rebuild the stricken areas. More in this report.
History reduced to rubble in Norcia. Sunday's 6.6 magnitude earthquake forced many to flee as church walls crashed down around them. There were no reports of death, but many buildings are wrecked, like the Basilica of St. Benedict, believed to mark the birthplace of the patron saint of Europe. Amid the cleanup, the local fire brigade is assessing the damage.
We'll try to rescue all the cultural heritage that has survived, but we're right in the centre of the seismic activity. The tremors are very, very intense. Such intensity has not been recorded here in many years. The tremors are so strong, it is really difficult for us to safeguard our cultural and artistic heritage here.
Lives had already been turned upside down by earthquakes and tremors over the past 2 months. Cracks have appeared in the nearby mountainside, and officials warn that seismic activity could go on for weeks.
I slept outside. Unfortunately, we are really scared with all the aftershocks that keep rattling the area. We are really sad and don't know what to do right now. It's hard to find the words to describe our situation.
Authorities say that more than 15,000 people are staying in hotels and temporary accommodation in central Italy, many scared of what could come next.
A production studio in Russia's St. Petersburg has taken the art of turning tin models into political memorabilia. The studio, called the Ruski Vityaz, or Russian Knight, makes tin figures depicting both historical figures and current Russian politicians. The most popular model requested by customers is Russian President Vladimir Putin in a variety of costumes. According to studio director, many of the models, which are made to order, have been requested by members of the government. The collection can prove to be an expensive hobby for political memorabilia collectors, with some models costing thousands of dollars. Wales international Gareth Bale signed a 3-year contract extension with Real Madrid that will keep him with the club until 2022. Bale joined Real for a then world record fee of €100 million in 2013 from Tottenham Hotspur. The forward has won 2 Champions League, a King's Cup and a European Super Cup in his 3 seasons with Los Blancos. The 27-year-old winger has made 135 appearances in all competitions since he joined the club, scoring 62 goals. The former Tottenham player said he signed his renewal because he wants to keep winning titles, especially the domestic league, which is the title pending since his arrival.
Hopefully there's more trophies and titles to win here again.
Lewis Hamilton finished 8th or 10th or lower, finished 8.35 seconds behind the anchor champions Mercedes to their 6-1-2 finish of the season. And finally, relatively cold weather continues in most regions for the rest of tonight, while remaining fair in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea with northwesterly light winds. Tomorrow there will be a drop in temperatures down to below seasonal average with a high of 22 forecast in Amman. Skies will be partly cloudy while winds will be northwesterly fresh, raising dust in the Badia and eastern regions. Light rain is expected to affect the northern regions during the day and the central region later at night. The Gulf of Aqaba should also expect a moderate day tomorrow with northerly moderate winds and slightly high seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to close here, our top stories once again. His Majesty the King discusses with the Canadian Governor-General's groups of bilateral cooperation and ways to capitalize on a free trade agreement signed between the two countries. Lebanon's former army chief Michel Aoun arrives at the presidential palace in Babda, seating himself on the president's chair, which has been empty for the past 29 months. And Iraqi troops advance on the city of Mosul after breaking through Daesh terrorist defense lines in an eastern suburb of the city after 2 weeks of fighting. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Leo Balkar. Thank you for joining us.